Hey guys, what's up? Yeah, Yelena, congrats on the announcement. Huge. So it's a pleasure to be back in Korea. Thank you, Erica and her team, for hosting. Korea has, I think, one of the strongest crypto communities in Asia and the world. And BUIDL Asia, to me, is like the pinnacle of like conferences in Asia and Korea. Always great to meet all the like top builders in this ecosystem. So my talk today is a little bit of a bigger picture talk, and it's called Go Bigger. So yeah, let's dive in. So first, I just want you guys to all rewind mentally to 2017. This is when I was first getting into crypto. Yes, I'm that old. But I remember just being so starry-eyed and optimistic and excited about this vision of decentralizing everything, right, that Ethereum Vitalik stood for. I feel like everyone was buzzing with ideas about how we could use blockchains as a new like platform for human coordination, a new computing paradigm. And, you know, people had all these grand visions of what we could build, right? We were going to build a new global financial system. We're going to, you know, put all the payments on chain. We were going to build a verifiable internet where, you know, the domain registries were decentralized and a lot of the core infrastructure that the internet operates on would be decentralized via blockchain. We were going to build network states and DAOs, like these new internet native institutions and organizations. We were going to decentralize social media, put power of data back in the hands of users, and allow users to control their feeds, right? So the algorithms that weren't like going to be our overlords. We were going to build a metaverse, gaming, assets, all like decentralized, autonomous worlds on chain, and lots of experiments with DePIN, right? But then you fast forward to 2025, and I feel like everyone's just very pessimistic and cynical about what the future of crypto is and what blockchains are useful for, right? Like I feel like all over Twitter and when I talk to people in real life, people are like, oh, well, crypto is just a casino. It's all just, for speculation, and we should accept that there's no other real use cases, or if there are real use cases, they're very limited. And Anatoly famously said a few months ago that there's only 6 smart contracts that really matter. So kind of implying that there's only 6 use cases for blockchains. And I think that even that is a very, very pessimistic view of what this industry can be. And so I think that this actually kind of maps very well to the Gartner technology hype cycle, where you start with this innovation trigger, which to me was Bitcoin in 2009. Then you have this sort of reflexive build up to this peak of inflated expectations, where everyone gets carried away with, maybe too much optimism for what can be built. And I think that was like 2017 in the ICO mania. And then when expectations don't meet reality, everyone starts to become more and more disillusioned. And I feel like we're now in this trough of disillusionment in 2025. So like, why are we disillusioned? Well, I think there's actually like, I don't blame everyone for being a little bit disillusioned at this moment in time, right? Because ever since 2017 and even before that, we've had these startups raise billions and billions of dollars, make really, really big promises, and then in the end, like very little actually gets delivered. We haven't actually seen many of these applications be successful. Many have failed or just really not achieved the kind of outcomes that we all were hoping for, right? So we've tried security tokens before. We've tried DAOs like Aragon and Aragon Court. We've tried, building domain registry systems on chain with some success, but still limited. We've tried doing payments, decentralized social media, metaverse startups, but nothing really seems to stick and break out into the mainstream and achieve meaningful traction. So it's kind of like this graveyard of all these failed attempts to build something meaningful. And Now, you might conclude that, okay, then that means these ideas just fundamentally are flawed and will never work, right? And I think that that's the wrong conclusion to make, because there's many examples of having the right idea at the wrong time. And that's why I think it's kind of common Silicon Valley sort of like wisdom that timing is equally important, right? And so an example of this is in the original internet bubble. You similarly had these startups that raised hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to build these big ideas, and then they ended up completely failing. So Webvan was supposed to be, online grocery delivery. Broadcast.com was supposed to be basically TV and broadcasting over the internet. xDrive was basically a cloud storage platform. All of these were super hyped up, raised a bunch of money, and they failed. And then, 10 years later or so, the same ideas were tried and ended up being some of the most successful startups, like web internet startups, right? So Instacart, same thing, grocery delivery, but they actually made it work just 10 years later. YouTube, one of the biggest, most successful platforms on the internet today. Dropbox, similarly, cloud storage. So all of these were good ideas, but they were tried at the wrong time. And why was the timing wrong? Was there's these exogenous factors that just made the actual building and delivering the product kind of unrealistic, right? So internet speeds were just way too slow to do broadcasting and video over the internet, right? We needed like broadband and fiber. The actual costs of operating these businesses was too expensive, or just the user friction was not there, or the user penetration was not there. Like people didn't have mobile phones, right? So a lot of these fundamental things changed, which then made these same ideas practical 10 years in the future. And I think that there's the same thing happening in crypto over the last 10 years, is that there's a bunch of exogenous factors that have made these applications fail in the past. So onboarding into crypto for new users is practically impossible. You used to have to download a wallet, save your seed phrase, and then you would have to onboard money to actually, send a transaction. That required, opening a centralized exchange account, connecting your bank account, wiring money, buying it. That's like a multi-day process that's completely impractical, right? So it's not surprising that we couldn't really get that many users on these applications. We had really tough regulation, right? We had regulation that made a lot of applications just outright illegal or extremely difficult to actually build, and also made a lot of these crypto-oriented businesses very expensive to operate, and kind of locked you out of a lot of jurisdictions with lots of users. The underlying infrastructure was slow and expensive. You don't want to wait 15 minutes for your transaction to be confirmed, nor do you want to pay $200 to send a transaction on chain, right? And then I think the dev tooling was also significantly limited. If you can the only tools that were available to you are like Solidity smart contracts on an EVM chain, that really kind of limits the scope of what kinds of applications you can build. And if you wanted to go outside of that, it was extremely expensive. You had to build everything from scratch yourself, right? So the good news is that I think a lot of these exogenous factors are changing and are different now in 2025, which merits a revisiting of some of these really, really core ideas in using today's, the ingredients that we have available today. So specifically, I want to talk about the last 2 points of the infrastructure maturity and also dev tooling, because that's something that Celestia has been working to solve since back in 2019. So what is Celestia? Well, Celestia is the modular blockchain powering unstoppable applications with full stack control. So you can think of Celestia as the blockchain that has been designed to give developers as much power as possible so that they can take their ideas and go bigger than they could on any other infrastructure. So the first way that Celestia gives developers and their applications allows them to go bigger is essentially by giving them this thing called full stack control. So in the traditional paradigm of building blockchain applications, you just expose only the smart contract layer, right? And you build your application on this vertically integrated monolithic layer 1. And Celestia flips that on its head by providing this very thin modular layer 1 that exposes significantly more customizability to you as a developer. So you can build these vertically integrated applications. You have a full stack control, and that gives you the ability to build new features, improve the user experience, and even capture value or return more value to your users. So the TLDR of this is that a full stack app dev has superpowers when you compare them to a sort of like dinky smart contract application developer. The second way that Celestia helps you go bigger is with horizontal scale. So Celestia's modular, very thin architecture and the fact that it's implemented this new cryptographic primitive called data availability sampling means that it can horizontally scale its block space in a way that was not possible with any other architecture. So Celestia is going to be able to achieve sort of deranged levels of throughput that I think no one has really considered to be possible before. And what this means is that when you build your application, it's not just a smart contract on another high-performance chain. Your application itself can be its own high-performance chain, and we can have multiple of these running in parallel. And so I think that's really, really powerful, the level of scale that you can achieve with something like Celestia underneath. And you know, our North Star is actually to deliver, in the future, 1 gigabyte blocks. And I'm really happy to sort of say that 2 days ago, we released this MAMO 1 public testnet, which achieved 128 megabyte blocks. So it was only actually like a 4x away from our original vision of hitting 1 gigabyte blocks. And this is equivalent to 32 Solanas, that's Solana's current throughput numbers, or 200,000 TPS. So again, this is still on testnet, but it's a massive step towards enabling this insane throughput. And really, you know, what Celestia believes is that if we're going to be able to build these applications to scale to millions and in the future billions of users, if we want to have an internet scale blockchain ecosystem, then we need this level of throughput. And to summarize sort of like the innovation that Celestia has brought about, I think it's very similar to the Web 2 cloud stack. And I think it will do the same thing in terms of enabling the acceleration and development of applications. So cloud computing basically gave web application developers the ability to deploy their own custom virtual servers that are, you know, tailor-made to their application. And they deploy it on this very scalable, cost-effective infrastructure called a data center, right? In the Web3 modular stack, it looks very similar. Instead of a virtual server, you deploy this virtual customized blockchain called a rollup, which is tailor-made to your application. And you deploy it on this highly scalable, cost-effective infrastructure called a data network, which is what Celestia is. And fundamentally, cloud computing was a massive paradigm shift for web application development because it gave developers way more control, way better scale, and enabled them to iterate and experiment faster than previous paradigms like shared web hosting, or if they had to build their own servers, physical servers from scratch, right? And so we think Web3, the modular stack, will do the same thing for Web3. It will dramatically expand the capabilities of your average developer and greatly accelerate the sort of innovation experimentation of blockchain applications. So, despite the fact that there's all this pessimism and cynicism out there, I think that fundamentals and the fundamental capability of blockchains as a technology has never been better than it is today in 2025. The fundamentals have been up only. And if you overlay the expectations, this hype cycle chart, on top of the capabilities, you see that whereas in 2017 we had this issue where the expectations were way, way, way above the actual capabilities of the underlying technology. I think we're in the reverse situation today in 2025, where actually the expectations are lower than the capabilities. And I think that gap represents a massive opportunity for developers and ambitious teams who want to capture this moment in time where you can build things that weren't possible before, right? And there's this huge asymmetry where I feel like we have a lot of great ideas that people have come up with over the past like 10 years that have failed in the past that you can learn from, but rebuild them with today's infrastructure and new capabilities. So with that in mind, I'm just going to quickly highlight a handful of ecosystem teams that are building on Celestia that sort of like represent this sort of like mantra of go bigger. First, I want to shout out again to Yelena, who just was up here. I wasn't able to add Noble to my slides, but Noble is a great example of going bigger by, they already have a very successful asset issuance chain, Cosmos chain, and now they're expanding to an application layer on Celestia that's going to give, sort of expand the suite of capabilities of their sort of like core product and business. And Celestia is very, very excited to partner and help them out. So cheers to Yelena for being also, I think, one of the most ambitious founders I've met in the space. So anyway, yeah. Abstract is another team that we're really pumped about. Their vision is to build a platform for consumer crypto. The founder, Luca, is also founded Pudgy Penguins, and he's this really ambitious sort of like vision for a product where they're going to embed sort of native account abstraction into their chain that gives the ability to have a user experience that's way, way more seamless than anything that we've previously seen. So you can have better sort of like recovery methods if you lose your key, so it's a lot more sort of user-friendly from that perspective. You can sponsor gas for other accounts, so they don't have to actually have the underlying token to pay for fees. You can have things like session keys so that you can enable a user to do interactions without having to sign a transaction every time. Transaction batching as well, so you don't have to sign multiple messages in a row. And I think of them kind of similar to like AOL, what AOL tried to do for the internet, to try to like make the internet much more consumer-friendly, user-friendly. And as we know, AOL was, for a time, extremely successful with that. Another team that we're really excited about is Pay. Pay is trying to build this on-chain bank, sort of like an on-chain JP Morgan Chase. Sid Gandhi comes from Apple and has like this really kind of like crazy attention to detail and strategic vision for their product. I really recommend everyone to download it and give it a try. And they're taking advantage of full stack control to implement a new sort of custom execution model that gives this key feature of privacy to their stablecoin payments product. And they're also using full stack control to customize their wallet so that it actually can be embedded in your phone. So when you download the app, you don't even ever like touch a seed phrase. You wouldn't even know that it's a crypto-based application. It's just natively in your secure enclave on your phone, backed up on iCloud. And when you want to send a transaction, it uses Face ID to verify your signature. And aside from that, Celestia is also supporting them in terms of scale, right? If you're going to have a payment network, it needs to be cheap. And if you're going to end up being successful with that and have thousands of transactions being sent every second, like Visa, you're going to need massive access to Visa scale throughput, and Celestia can provide that. Towns is another project that recently migrated to Celestia that we're very excited about. It's essentially trying to build this decentralized Discord. I think like decentralized social applications are a really exciting domain that I think people should pay more attention to, and we should see more experiments like Towns. Ben Rubin actually is a serial entrepreneur in Web 2 social, so you may have heard of Meerkat or House Party, which are two very successful Web 2 social apps. And House Party was actually acquired by Epic Games. Anyway, Ben is like a very visionary, very ambitious builder, and he has this vision for having like a sort of like a customized protocol that sort of combines messaging, a reputation system, social graph, just like membership tokens and payments to build like a decentralized Discord. And I'm a really big fan. They're live. I encourage everyone to give it a try. And then last but not least is Prism, which is trying to build verifiable internet infrastructure. And essentially the way to think about what they're trying to do is throughout the internet there are these centralized key directories. So even when you are talking to a website and getting information from them, the way that you know that you're talking to the right person is there's a certificate authority that tells you, yep, that's the right public key that you should use to sort of encrypt and sort of like do your handshake with, right? And what's crazy is that a government could just sit there and man-in-the-middle attack you, and you would never know it. And you could just be talking to someone that you're not. And this is true even for all your, quote, encrypted messengers of Signal or WhatsApp or even iMessage. You have the same problem, which is there's a centralized key directory that tells me that I'm actually the one, this is Erica's public key, right? And what's beautiful about Prism is that they're enabling you to, they're kind of building a protocol that will enable people to directly verify all of these things. So you eliminate the need for a centralized key directory. It can be a public, decentralized, verifiable key directory, and that then can turn into so many other things, almost like a on-chain identity system in the future. And they're building on Celestia specifically because Celestia gives them this ability to embed light nodes into their applications so users can verify directly in the background. So there's a lot more projects that I could highlight here, but that's just like a quick overview. But I think really what I'm trying to say is that as an industry, we're at this crossroads, right, where we have a choice where we can take the blue pill and just accept that crypto is fated to just be a casino. We're just a speculative technology and speculative and extractive, and kind of give in to the pessimism. Or we can take the red pill and continue fighting for all the ideals and all of the exciting, like society-transforming applications that I think all brought us here in the first place, right? And I think the choice is obvious, which is that we should take the red pill and we should go bigger. And if you're out there in the audience or online and you're inspired by this, and you have an idea of something that you want to build, maybe you already have an application, but you need something more to sort of take it to the next level, please come and talk to us. We'd love to support you. And thank you very much.